You got some bad music coming up?
No, we won't need it. I'll let it in post.
I'll post you.
I don't know what that means. Zaza, how are you?
Well, that's such a loaded question.
I know. I didn't mean it. I'm happy to see you.
Me too. It's been too long.
It's been too long. I'm happy to talk to you in general. I started this podcast.
Yes.
And we haven't had a guest yet. And then, trying to think about, I don't want the first guest to be, I don't want to over inflate like how big of a deal that is or not because it's a new podcast. And then, the format, we're still working at the kinks. But I thought this would be a very comfortable way to kind of start that. So I'll start a little bit about what I was thinking, and then I have some questions for you. I'd love to jump around a little bit, kind of have a structure mapped out in my head in a way that I think this will help make sense to other people. So I know you from our mutual kind of employment history and in the field of, education and whatnot, and something we both still do. And that's where we met and became friends. But really where we have been more involved the past couple of years has been with your kind of new adventure into a new genre of music for you. Music's not new for you by any means. You're a lifelong student of the violin and whatnot, but this other foray into hip hop, if I can call it that, if that's okay with you. I don't, how people are with genres. So I did want to start that, kind of the reason we got talking and then had the idea to do this podcast is we have a mutual friend who we lost recently. And, I want to talk about Mr. Tracy for a minute and just kind of your, fond memory of him. And, I didn't get to spend the time with him that you did, but that was part of why we were talking. So can you just jump in kind of wherever you're comfortable?
Well, yeah, we've been knowing each other for about 8 years.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize when I got into music, I didn't know really what a producer was or what a producer did.
Sure.
And I didn't realize that you work in that capacity in a really great way. And thank you for having me on the show and being your first guest. I feel so honored.
Oh, it's going to be fun. No, yeah, it's going to be fun.
Tonight. But Mr. Tracy, I love roller skating. I'm a big roller skater. I've been roller skating my whole life, but more recently, really seriously.
Sure.
And I have 2 little girls that are last summer when I met Mr. Tracy. Well, no, I'm sorry. I met Mr. Tracy when I turned 40, and he did the sound at my party. Mm-hmm. And I probably saw him at the Stadium a few other times over the years because he's been affiliated with the Stadium for about 9 years, Rob was saying. He's the owner at the Stadium. Sure. And I always like the vibe at the Stadium. It's just got that gritty South City, really deep, like
it's an institution. It's certainly a relic of that kind of business model overall. I think it was, but it still operates kind of that way, even if only in a nostalgia kind of capacity. But they also do hockey and we've had all kinds of weird parties there now and events,
roller derbies, hip hop shows, and, you name it.
Video shoots.
And anything flies there. And I really like that you could let it all hang out. It's the only place I've been in St. Louis where I feel like you could be in New Orleans or you could be in Amsterdam.
Yeah, it's a total, especially that neighborhood is so quiet and kind of no one's going to ask you what you're doing there. And you can have it's a very unique spot. I'm sure every city feels like they have things like that, but locally, yeah. So it's basically an old roller rink that is still operational.
It exists as that. And if you want to dream something, Rob is like, yeah, come on down and do it. As long as it's, low key and not high tech, but then Tracy comes along. He's like, I've got the sound system, So last summer I kept seeing, my girls at that time were 5 and 6 years old. And I was teaching them how to roller skate. And I kept seeing Tracy would have people up. And I'm like, what are you doing up there?
Up in the loft. There's a loft area, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Above the stadium. And he's like, well, it's a studio. I record music. I'm like, oh, really? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, I'm a rapper. And he just scoffed at me, of course, like most people
Sure.
do. And then I ended up having the Goddess Awards there last year. And I would come and rehearse there before I started skating at Forest Park every day. And he heard me spitting my bars. And he's like, you know what, Zaza? You ought to come upstairs. I'm like, it's about time you asked me.
Right.
It took about 2 months, you know? And then he ended up recording, I don't know, like 8 or 9 songs with me this past year.
That's only been
we did
year.
an EP together, which I never released, just because of a lot of things that happened over the summer and just my own, insecurities as an artist or whatever. But
I'll put it in the vault.
A lot of time together, just as my kids and him, and then also just me and him up in the studio shooting the shit. And he told me his life story, and he was a drifter. He was brilliant. He used to rig games and let kids play unlimited, in the neighborhood. He grew up on McRee, down in the South City. And he always said he didn't have any family, but that just wasn't true. The truth is he just, he wasn't an old guy. He was only 54, but
right.
The fact is homelessness over time takes its toll. And even though he mastered it, he had one hit in his life. He mastered Juju on that beat and got a check for $54,000. And I'm like, Tracy, that's a starter check for something, like making something happen
for the career, right? That's you try to parlay that into how you want to, but if you don't have that training or those skills or somebody in your life with that wisdom, you know what I mean?
No, and homelessness and poverty has this way of, Tracy didn't know his worth, and I've talked to at least 24 rappers this past 2 weeks since he died, just hearing their stories and gathering information about his obituary. And the one consistent theme is that he always made you feel like you were going to blow up and made you feel like you were onto something. And Rucka Puff, who's now Zeus Rebel Waters, he would just, Tracy's always like, don't forget about me when you blow up, And
like he had that enthusiasm.
He would just use those words and just make you feel comfortable in the studio. He was real simple. He didn't like doing anything fancy, but he was very good at mastering. He had an excellent ear.
Right. That's the hard thing too, is because that was what I learned with the brief time I got to kind of work with him, is that he's not super into the chopping things up and the studio part that's super about changing the audio, but he's all about making the audio sound really good. And he has he really likes things to sound a certain way, and he likes bass to hit a certain way, but that's very specific. But, just like you're saying, like a very enthusiastic guy, just obviously loved music.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure we're only a couple of dozens, if not hundreds of people that he's gotten to work with, even just locally, much less actually having some, charted success and whatnot, and the people he must have met on that ride alone.
Yeah, he just mastered Zeus's album a few weeks ago.
Right.
And he consistently mastered for 25 years, as far as I can tell. He never had any formal schooling. He became unhoused at 14 and grew up hanging out at the arcade repair shop. And that's where he learned all of his gaming habits. He never had enough money to be a gambling addict, believe me. But
right.
He knew how those machines worked, and he could retool them. I mean, the most recent thing he did, at the stadium, he rigged up a Jimmy jukebox. Basically, you put quarters in, and then you hook up to the Bluetooth. So for $15, you can have unlimited bump and sound with all your own music on it, as long as you put enough quarters in it.
Yeah. And
his signage around the stadium, just the way he expressed himself and just the way he was. He was a one of a kind, and he was so kind.
And he was such a part of that. He was such a part of the spirit of that place, for me at least, because he's been hanging around there since, and working out of there since I've been going there. So it's one of those, it's some of the places you can't disassociate from the characters that kind of make them special, because it would be just a sad building if nobody was doing anything with it. And for Rob and Tracy and their team there to, they're kind of they put the life in it. So that was certainly my experience.
I don't know what Rob's going to do now, man. I was there the other day and the DJ showed up. I'm like, good luck, man. Rob's like, oh. I mean, they figured it out, but you know, it's just not going to be as easy to you know, get that sound system and the stacks. I don't know.
No,
If
I mean, there's no
anybody
staff. It's not like there's
this,
an institutional memory. You know what I mean?
right? If anybody's out there that is interested in buying that studio equipment as a lot, or all of his sound equipment, which there's a lot, please do call the Scadium, because Rob is interested in getting
Finding a home for that stuff.
It needs a home, and there's some debts to be settled in Tracy's name, and we want to do good by him. And
sure,
you know,
yeah.
But it leaves a hole in my heart. You know, that upstairs place was it was a brothel for a while, you know, like for a lot of years, you know, and that energy is up there. Like,
oh, sure.
The oldest profession in the world is where I recorded some of my grittiest, most satisfying songs that I feel very happy with.
And that's very much, I don't want to name like stereotypes of this kind of thing, because I mean it in a good way, but like it's very much, it had that guerrilla DIY kind of you know what I mean, like, not that he didn't have quality gear in there, but it was very much, it was not originally a studio. It was something he was using as his studio at that time, and he had kind of constructed a little vocal booth, and it was very much like connected to it. There wasn't any like pretense or like sheen over it. You know what I mean? It was
this motherfucking dirty piece of shit place I'd ever been in, and I loved it. Even though I got eaten alive by bed bugs one day this summer with it.
I don't need to know that. I've been in there. I sat on that couch once, I think.
He got rid of the chair and the bed bugs were gone, luckily. I don't even know.
Oh, they must have been in the chair then. So we don't certainly have to put that to bed, but I did want to mention, so move on to a thing that you mentioned in there. I didn't necessarily set up a formal introduction or anything. So we know each other from our career, then from collaborating musically. But so kind of update people on what your participation is with your music currently, and then I want to talk about the journey that we witnessed to get there. So kind of, are you still Zaza G?
I'm Zaza Goodbrake. I mean, I was born Elizabeth Goodbrake, but I've been Za since 1998. And then in like 2003, someone called me Zaza. I'm like, well, I think I like that the best, but Za or Zaza is what I prefer.
Yeah.
I think I didn't fully grow into my name until, of course, we met in 2012 or 2013.
Yeah.
When I was pregnant with my first child, and you were a student teacher.
Right.
And I was teaching at U City High School, and I love U City. I still work at U City. I have a lot of respect for the parents, administration, teachers, coworkers, and students. Like, it is my home.
Yeah, it had been for a long time.
Respect for all of that.
Yeah.
However, I have this other life. Well, I think all women have two faces at least.
Yeah.
You know, where and my whole issue was about 2 years ago, and you witnessed this up close and personal, and this is what makes this conversation so special. Sure. And to sit here 2 years later and like be able to reflect on it is something different than what it was in that moment. But I went to China on a trip, so I could take some students to Greece later that year for a trip, and it was an all adult trip, which was like going to summer camp for adults. Like, it was amazing. I only spent 5 days in Beijing, but on the Great Wall of China, I literally had some massive shift happen. Now, with some perspective, I think I had what you would say the best midlife crisis ever.
Yeah.
Like, it was just an explosion of creativity. Partially when, by the time I got the next night after I came home, I came downstairs, and we'd already been messing around with some music a little bit, just
and we'll talk about that in a second for sure, but I don't want to lose the narrative here.
But and so I had some interest in doing some recordings, but never.
It was very much like we were jamming,
just
to kind of feel it out, not
whatever.
Necessarily even in a hip hop kind of style as much sonically as it was the workflow, and we'll talk about that. too. But yeah, so we had caught up in my home studio. It was when I lived in Dogtown at the time.
Cat Hair Studios in downtown Dogtown.
Right, downtown Dogtown. And we were kind of mostly catching up and kind of, enjoying some libations from abroad, and kind of had a beat kind of going. And then, yeah, you were saying.
Then I got home from China, and like it was almost like something like a door opened. And I'd always been I've always enjoyed poetry. I've been journaling, avid journaler my whole life.
Sure.
Really enjoy poetry. But something happened that night where I kind of found my flow. And it was one part like sleep deprivation, another part just exhilaration from knowing that, I'd been involved in this 12-year relationship, 10 years of marriage, knowing that was changing. And just sort of having a new chapter open, and just this door open. And then I started to really catch, all of a sudden I wanted to wear like multiple necklaces, and I started rapping. It was literally a severe personality break. Like if we studied it like in the psychological lens, it was a severe departure from I lost my mind.
Yeah. Well, you felt a need for some kind of a transformation with especially with how you communicated with the world around you in your life. And I think pairing that with a totally visually very breathtaking kind of a trip, and then having that time in that accelerated abnormal environment. Not that you're not a world traveler, but had you ever been to the Great Wall before?
No, but that was my 40th country.
Yeah. So, right. And so it was a shift for you into a new chapter of your life with age and with your outlook on what things in your life could or should look like. And then doing that in a way where you're kind of hitting a milestone in your travels, I think both spiritually and physically. I'm okay saying that.
Absolutely.
We use a lot of that language on the show.
If you're playing the game, like you gather all these different like coins or like mushrooms or whatever. Like I've been to 4 of the great.
You have all kinds of mushrooms.
Yeah. Great wonders of the world. I mean, I've drank ayahuasca in the Amazon, I've fucking meditated for 10 days in the mountains. I've walked through the desert, and, I've been all over. But that was like the last.
Do you know that song? But I've never been to me. You don't know that song?
No.
Oh my God! It was in Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. It's all about like.
No. Now I know it. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I've been undressed by kings, and I've seen. Anyway, yeah. So sort of some of that energy. I appreciate that song. I had a single mother who listened to that song a lot in the house, so I'm okay with it. I know where you're coming from.
Like I felt like my not like I need help with my ego, but like I started when so I woke up the next day. I'm like, I need to get into a studio. I'm going to be like, suddenly the delusions were really strong.
Well, listen, but so what I really witnessed was, I think you kind of discovered an avenue to kind of express some of your energy, both frustration and creativity and positive things, not just negative things, in a new way. And, it'd be like having all the inspiration built up for something that you don't know how to do yet. But then when you discover it, you're not going to, that's why it's so important for a lot of us to do that in like when we're teenagers, where we're not going to stop because we're so impulsive and driven towards whatever we like anyway. Like if I had really, like, I'm not going to learn to play a new instrument now at 30. Then as I did, like when I learned electric guitar and keyboard and stuff, like I could sit there and suck at it for a long time, and it was okay because that's part of the journey. And so I think that's also hard because you already know what it sounds like when your violin is the way you want it to sound like. But then to try to do hip hop for the first time, I think that's an important part of the process, is to see what sticks.
But the absurd thing was I'd never listened to rap a day in my life.
Right,
I fucking hated it. So then I was like,
yeah.
What am I was like, I talked to the universe every night. What the fuck do you want me to do with this? And the universe kept saying, you better get busy. And so I spent I mean, every time I listen to a new album, I consider that working.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I'm exposing myself to a new cadence or rhythm or artist, it is my work because I'm consistently looking for a sound and finding my flow.
Well,
And
and so I
believe
think
me,
what you didn't like about it was some of the more toxic aspects of the hip hop culture that people talk about, like some of the misogyny and the
violence.
and the kind of uber masculine tendencies in some of it, and the violence in some of it, and
And
whatnot. Which so that's the part you didn't connect with, but what you did connect with was the way to lock in emotions and communicate that way.
lyrical storytelling is one of the oldest forms of art in ever, right? And I think it's a beautiful thing to deliver a story with a nice cadence, and of course, drum and beat and melody is just, it's the essence of music, and lyricism is, I can't sing, of course. So when I found that I could be a performer without having to carry a tune, I'm like,
Right.
oh, this is perfect.
Sure.
Because I can't sing. I really can't. And so, but also my biggest problem, not the misogyny and not the violence, because I am a guest in the hip hop industry. The four pillars of hip hop, I was not raised with. I'm raising my daughters in with those four pillars. But the thing is, I wasn't raised in the hood. I wasn't raised. I was raised very conservative Catholic, two parent family, in the fucking suburbs. No one wants to fucking hear about that. Although it ultimately doesn't matter where you're from. It depends on, it matters how you tell your story and
But
how you
that's
deliver
not really your
message.
subject matter.
My biggest problem is that rappers including Megan Thee Stallion's new album, the system consistently glorifies. Okay, I'm sorry. Rap music consistently glorifies a system that can inherently fails its subscribers.
Yeah.
So this whole obsession with wealth, this whole obsession with advancement and with luxury, I have a major task. I don't care for it.
Yeah.
Like Cardi B was just talking about, I love Cardi B. I love Megan Thee Stallion. I just adore them. But Cardi B has 500 pairs of shoes and her boyfriend has 3,200. Right. This is not.
Well, and this is something we talked about last week on this show, is that we can only flaunt the wealth so much before the people that can't get a knee operation or can't feed their kids, they're going to start asking, hey, can we not with the this and the that? You know what I mean? We were talking about, I have kids in my district where I work that go home with food from school every day to take home to their family, which is a great program. I'm so glad we do it.
Sure.
And then Kim Kardashian celebrated her 40th birthday on $1 million island getaway with like 40 people in the middle of a pandemic. And I'm not saying don't do that, but can we kind of be like, my family was Catholic growing up, so I have some of that shame and guilt complex that you and me joke about so much, that like, keep it a secret. Like, don't let them take a picture of you on the beach that you just closed. You know what I mean?
Oh, no, motherfucker. Better yet, why are we glorifying a system that consistently fails its subscribers? If we can't, and this is my whole thing, since I was 4 years old when I was very politically conscious from a very young age. I've been arrested a bunch of times for civil disobedience. I've been a political activist for 27 years. I am very concerned that as humans, we all do the same 5 things every day, right? We have more in common than not, the same 5 fucking things, but we can't seem to just provide a bathroom for every human on the planet with a basic amount of calories for people to consume. We have failed the species.
Yeah, you know what? That's one thing we say on this show all the time, and forgive my French, but people like to eat and they like to shit. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? Can we let them?
Fuck.
Oh, yeah, they could. I mean, occasionally, nowadays, people are doing that less than ever. We're all on Paxil and shit, but no, yeah, that'd be nice. I'm thinking, we were talking last week about the bioidentical hormone replacement therapy that makes all the old people so horny. You got to look into this. It's a game changer. Some people don't have. Anyway, tangential. What is that? You got a little tea?
Yeah, a little echinacea.
Oh, yeah, lovely. What is that, like an herb?
Mhm. It's a
Sure.
flower. It's the purple cone flower.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It boosts immunity. The COVID.
So we were talking about um
My whole basis of wanting to rap. So it took 21 months for me to figure out that, like, literally I went into a studio about a week and a half after this all happened, and I hadn't even written a song yet. All I knew
but you
was
were
I
eager
needed to
to learn and start the process.
I had to go, and I knew nothing.
Right.
Nothing. And I show up, and this guy's a multimillionaire and has recorded some nice people. I mean, he's not a recording artist or a producer. He does it on the side.
Yeah.
He's a construction business owner.
Mogul?
He's very
Would you say mogul?
I get up there, I'm just like, I'm going to be famous. You don't even understand. Yeah. And he was like, who is this woman? But I'm so passionate and so convincing. And I had one song and I made it. And I've made that song, I think 6 times now, and it's still not right. And then I've written 120 songs. And none of them are very good, it turns out. And it turns out that here's what I've learned over 21 months of being slightly delusional. It's very difficult to make something that people actually want to listen to repeatedly.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's almost like it's an accident, like it's a lottery. It's almost like it's hard to know because you're not going to finish something that you think is garbage.
Yeah.
But people finish a lot of stuff that doesn't stay popular. I have 7 copies of the Backstreet Boys' last album still in the cling film on my pool table behind me.
I'm not.
Because they come with the tickets now. That's how they get record sales now. Is they pair them with the tickets. They did like one song from that album, and then it was their Las Vegas show from 2 years ago, which is nothing but hits. But one of the best shows I've ever seen. But I'm sure that was $1 million record for them to make. There's engineers and you're an A-list act. You're not getting discounts on anything. So,
right.
But I couldn't name one song on that album if you held a gun to my head, unless the title track is a thing that exists. But even then, I'm not 100%.
To make a big sound. And so here I am just pushing.
I've been doing it for 15 years, trying to, so I'm in your same boat. I totally get like not knowing what's going to be good. And then you hear stories all the time of songs that ended up people really do love that the artist thought it was garbage or whatever. So, I mean, we could go on and on about that. You were saying.
Well, and I'm not young. And so
you look
here's
great.
The thing. I would go back and forth on whether or not my music, and I've done these parodies, like I've done 8 parodies now, just retakes on what I think are the most egregious, offensive, misogynistic hip hop songs from the catalog from early days. So it's mostly old school stuff that I've rewritten, kind of a Weird Al take on a couple songs, which I'm proud of the work I've done,
sure.
Especially on Dr. Dre's Housewife and of course the Sir Mix-a-Lot.
Did you put that out? The Housewife clapback?
Housewife and Baby Got Back, or I'm sorry, Fella Got Slack.
Housewife, where's a lot of this stuff,
proud of those.
A lot of this stuff is on YouTube.
It's all on YouTube. Yeah, I'm Zaza, Goodbrake. That's who I am everywhere. Zaza, Goodbrake.
Yeah,
that's never going to change.
And we can link that stuff. I mean, in the show description or whatever. I'm not as worried about that as much as I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page. That like,
yeah,
because I don't know if I've heard a final kind of cut of the Housewife thing, but I remember talking about it early when you had the idea, and I love the idea.
Of that song. I am. It's Tracy's favorite. He did all my mastering settings just based on that song because I was so angry that day and I had it,
and that's one of those things too.
All that.
Because you see very successful artists struggling with this also, but you see a lot of trying to capture what was so great for them previously and then just trying to apply those same concepts or settings or environments or whatever to new things. And it's really hard. It's really hard to recreate some of that. But no, yeah, when it sounds really great and it's locked in like that, yeah, you want to capture all that memory.
So then I needed to come up with original content, and I keep getting stuck on just various people telling me my beats were whack, some of them which you made, some of which I love, And I fuck you if you think my beats are whack. My bars are sick. So go fuck yourself,
Right.
is actually how I feel about it. I like the beats we made together, V, and I would like to make more beats with you.
Oh, I'd love to see those projects through. I think it'd be, especially considering that's the kind of music that's really great to release and promote digitally, and that's kind of our limit, right? Because you're not necessarily going around town doing 90-minute sets, even if that was an option right now. You know what I mean?
No.
So having content though that we've honed, that we really enjoy, I would love to get back into some of that stuff. I have a lot of it still, and my part of the process really just involves me trying to help my computer make drums happen, and then I do like bass lines on one of my synths mostly, which is so much fun. It's so great. And then, I have my little vocal booth here in my coal box, honey. Forget about it. We run you a cable under the door.
I loved that.
So go ahead.
Okay, so I oscillate between just being delusional, completely delusional. And I had this AR from Universal very interested in developing my sound and the work. And I tried to find some funding because the lawyers at Universal said, hell no, St. Louis, Missouri, 41 years old. That's just a no and a no. But this A&R really thinks, I'm onto something. He's like, Goodbrake, you come up with one thing, I've got you. I'm like, I'm just trying to make that one thing right now.
Especially because the overhead is so much more minimal than it was, even 10 or 20 years ago with, you know what I mean? Like, you don't ever have to put out something on a CD that's going to sit on a shelf somewhere until, until there's a demand for that. Like, there's not the only avenue. So
no, there's so many ways to do it. I have no excuse and then I go back and forth. Here's the thing, right before the pandemic hit, I wore this outfit.
Yeah. Give it a spin.
It was so
Give me a spin.
Great.
Yeah. Loving it.
I performed at Pops and I opened up for MC Chris, who is the dorkiest rapper of all time. And
I love MC Chris. Was I gigging that night? Is that why I wasn't there? Was it a Friday?
It was a Friday.
I must have been at the casino.
You were.
Yeah.
You were.
That's a bummer. That would have been
like 150 people there.
Yeah.
And I actually did a full 40-minute set without skipping. I dropped one line and recovered really well. I did 9 songs in a row. And I danced my ass off and had really great feedback.
That's not easy. It's hard for me to pull that off. To sing and perform are two separate things. You know what I mean? So to vocalize in your case and dance and remember original material that's new and, and then I start sweating. I get all greased up and then I get in my eyes and my glasses fall off and it's a mess.
And I also played my violin for part of it. And I really think that night, and you know what, if nothing ever comes but for that night, at least I had one really cool night, and I was capable of doing it, and knowing that I could actually deliver that many songs that were fully memorized that I wrote by my own hand, and performed, and it was just really satisfying. And I am at heart a performer and an entertainer above all else. I just loved being on stage and getting the audience involved and getting people up to dance. Like, that's what I want to do.
Well, and because that's good for your show at the level that it is, being that it's new and emergent, and but also that as an opening spot, that's a really great idea. Like that's a really great approach to being an opener for a headlining traveling act like that. Also, do we have this? Do we have this documented somewhere, even if it's just for our scholarship?
I have it videoed. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Just even if it's just for us, because that's a huge part of my thing now. Is like we did that live record, Jacob V and my band.
Yes.
We did that live record last year. That it's just like I didn't know COVID was going to happen a year later. But now, I can drive around and listen to it, and it sounds like you're there. It sounds like you're in that room, and you can kind of start to smell it, and you can remember being sweaty. It was kind of hot in the, you know what I mean, and like so.
I was there that night.
Yeah, and so that document is so great. I got this little camera that I'm shooting this with right now that has really great microphones on it for live shows, and it's just so good to document that stuff. And you notice that some people have done that their whole career, and then they ended up using it later. But
Hmm.
hold on to that video because we're gonna need it when we send some good ones up the pipe. Because if we're gonna put that in like the Patreon subscription, they're gonna have access to that secret early bootleg footage.
The thing is, my early is too late. That moms, like, my whole thing is, and for one,
This is part of what I wanted to get to is so just to recap where we've been real quick. I'm a musician. You're a lifelong violinist, and in the past year or so, recently, 2 years, a rapper.
2 years.
2 years now. That's what I thought, and amongst other things. But also, your message is part of. That's really what it's about for you. Is it's not about. It's not a. Even though you work on these things and they become really great skills that you craft, it's not about just making hip hop music that you like. Like I have a friend who I'm not going to name because it's not going to sound flattering, who is a very, very talented and kind of high level functioning hip hop artist, but it's all very good timey. Hey, we're partying. Hey, we got honeys in the joint. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily a politically or socially focused approach. And that's the opposite of your thing. You're less about I want to make hip hop, and more about I want to use hip hop to convey a spirit that I'm feeling and a messaging that I'm getting that I want to relay to other people. Is that an inaccurate summation?
No, that's perfect.
Okay, so tell me about that. So this is where I think we're going. Is tell me about who you're trying to speak to or speak for, and then tell me about that.
So, I think globally, I'm an internationalist since birth. And it's still legal to beat your wife in a very large amount of countries.
I didn't mean to laugh, but yeah, I didn't know we were going there. But yes, I totally. This is exactly where I wanted to go. Please.
So we'll just start there. Abortion is still very illegal in many, many countries.
Many.
Divorce is unheard of in many countries.
It was just legal in Ireland like a couple of years ago. They made it legal finally.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It was in the early 2000s. So my entire epiphany, if you will, not only is fueled by this insanity of American motherhood, which is absolute.
It's an impossible job. Not only is it thankless, people say that all the time, but it's also like impossible considering, especially now you guys have to work. Like remember like back in the day, now you got to work full time. Like you have like your own health insurance and shit. Like it's not even like the housewife thing. At least you got to stay in the house. It's like the Ali Wong, which is there's a comedian. I don't know if you know her, but she had a joke that like when women are, when she hears women say things like, well, what if we won? And she's like, bitch, shut up. I don't want to have to take the trash out.
So the insurmountable amount of unpaid labor that women contribute to the capitalist system, I find infuriating. So the capitalist system in general, women contribute a vast amount to, and it basically gives us nothing. We'll always finish last. Women and children will always finish last. We will not benefit from a system which we contribute our free labor to consistently throughout our entire lives. Not only that, but we have to, the free labor, it spans the entire life cycle, whether or not you choose to have children. And you don't have to have a uterus to be considered in this group of people either. I don't want to give a shout out to my non-binary and gender non-conforming friends, because I would include everyone born with a uterus or anyone not identifying as male in this group of people.
Sure.
So American motherhood, though, you wake up one day and then like this thing is you're not supposed to, but what's modeled to you is that your identity is basically shot and you get a license plate that says like Caleb's mom. Yeah. And suddenly you devote your entire life to your kids. And that's just bullshit.
And it's just assumed. It's just assumed. It's such an important thing that my therapist asked me about when we got engaged was make sure you have conversations about not only whether or not you want to have children, but how you want your roles to be in your daily life. Because even though you already live together, those could change if your expectations are different from what a husband and a wife are supposed to do every day. And so, yeah, if you want to have relationships with pretty much anybody, they're going to try to impose that gender expectation on you, and they may not align with what you want to subscribe to and participate in.
Well, I just think monogamy's for suckers in the first point.
Great
Second
point.
of all, women have two faces. Like, you don't have to. I'm just tired. And this is a big thing in pop culture, not just hip hop or whatever, but that the hotties are in the club. Like, I'm sorry, but moms, one of my favorite lines is, I'll make a PBJ in 2 minutes flat, but I can make you come twice as fast as that. Like, I will turn around from the kitchen and get you in the bathroom and have my way with you. And I can live both of those lives. Every woman has two faces.
Yeah.
And you don't have to sacrifice that sexiness, that identity. And you don't have to go to the club to express it either.
Mm-mm.
You can dance in your kitchen and make it just as a wonderful, like, life is supposed to be a joyous experience, and we're co-creating it together. And your kids don't have to be this reason to cloister yourself or pin yourself down to this lower version of yourself. Like, that's
to live a more modest or muted
that
version of your because it was your choice to have children, and so in doing that,
kind of.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's a separate issue. But also the so in doing that, you can choose to do that and not defer any of your other liberties.
Right. And
that.
I didn't know shit about, I don't care who knows my full story. I was in a sexless marriage for 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And a sexless marriage is anything that's, 3 times or less a year. I had sex 3 times and had 2 babies. No, I'm not Mormon. I married someone that was not a lover. I married like a brother, I guess you would say. And so I spent 10 years sort of incubating and ruminating over these feelings, kind of like Moses walking through the desert.
Mm-hmm.
And when you deny your urges for that long, one thing does happen. You forget about them, first of all. And then they manifest in different ways.
Sure.
And so I perhaps experienced such an extreme personality shift during this period where I became a rapper. And I truly believe that's what
because it was also a new chapter for that part of your life too, for the sort of conventional limitations that you'd been living under. You were kind of exiting that phase anyway. At the same time,
it was coming to an end.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. At the same time that you were discovering this new art form, and so
it was like a nexus or like a supernova.
It was a total paradigm shift. Like you were changing several kind of important things at once. Even if it was for the better or for it was overall a positive change, because it's still kind of
do it again and again.
Yeah,
I loved every minute of it, although some parts were really scary.
It got crazy. Shit got crazy. There was the time,
crazy. I remember sitting down with you and be like, look, I'm going to be so famous. This is totally happening.
I think I signed a contract.
And you're just like, okay. And you never cracked a smile. You just looked at me and you're like, okay.
Well, how do I know? My job doesn't have anything to do with any of the other.
You were so good to me and like just fielded my delusions.
Listen, bitch, you need a baseline. You need a little boom clap. I got it. The rest of that stuff was all on you. That you had to make that other stuff happen. I was excited to be along for the ride.
Now, I still completely believe in my ability to incite an international feminist revolution with hip hop music. I want to make birth control free for the entire population. I want everyone to have somewhere to go to the bathroom every day and basic calories for the world. I think I can do that still. I really do.
I don't think
why I wake up in the morning.
I don't think people overall disagree with that either, especially when you're talking on a global scale. There are countries where they have laws about everyone needs to have XYZ to eat every day. I've seen on the Travel Channel, like it's, some places it's bread, some places it's it's whatever. But like the bathroom thing, I keep thinking about a funny story we used to tell at lunch. You know what I mean? But like, that's important. Like when I am horribly addicted to carbonated beverages, and I'm driving around playing Pokemon Go with my dogs. It's sometimes I don't know where I'm going to pee, and I want to live in a world where People aren't peeing on the street. You know what I mean? So we got to figure out. And you know what? It kind of goes back to some of the issues we were talking about earlier with homelessness and uh, uh, if you kind of look at the macro kind of problem, there's nowhere where we want that to kind of be the case, right? So yes, like you're saying, so those issues that you still want to challenge and kind of confront, you absolutely could still do those.
I need just one hit and I'm going to give it all away. Like I'll
channel it. You'll channel it into a stream of improving those things.
Clean water. I mean, more people have cell phones on this world than have a shitter to go to the toilet in. Like,
well, all the sharing. You know what? I really don't like to share. That's why we don't rent out that upstairs bedroom to a roommate. Is because there's no bathroom up there. I'm like, they're not coming down here to my bathroom, honey. Not today, Satan.
So that's part of, and our concept of space. I mean, our concept of everything in this country. I actually think that the Post-Dispatch is going to publish my letter to the editor this week. But Americans, if you want it, we're not going to get into this right now. But
we can.
Our culture is having a really hard time with what's happening right now, and our culture is directly working against us because we're supposed to have it our way. And our individual freedoms and liberties are the most important things against all else. And right now, they're not.
Do you feel like there are people that disagree with you about that? Do you feel like there are people either older or younger than you that disagree about? Go ahead and say that again about the liberties and and let's talk about some of those people, because I feel like you and me are like the kind of people that are so guilty of getting stuck in a bubble of people that agree with us. Like we were totally blindsided in 2016 and the results of the election, and like we just didn't think it was an option. You know what I mean? So for some of my listeners, just who are some of those people in a vague sense that disagree with those things?
So apart from, let's just take all the politics out of it. Let's just look at cultural values. And if you look at the Hofstadter Index, it's Hofstede Index. It's an index that compares countries to countries on different metrics. How well does your culture deal with uncertainty avoidance? Like this idea of we don't know exactly what's going to be happening tomorrow or the next day. How well does your culture deal with? There's 5 metrics on there. Only one of them really applies to what's going on right now with our healthcare crisis. Mm-hmm. The reason I've been to 40 countries, the reason I've spent more than 2 years out of the country in my life is because I love this country and I'm always searching for what it means to be an American. And the one thing I keep coming back to these days is that we are raised through advertising, through our family structure, through our schooling, that our individual rights are above all else. You are the person, and what you believe, your individual choice, freedom, and independence is the most important. And economically, it translates the best. And so that's what we go with. That's what we push through the advertising venue. But you can do anything you want if you work hard enough. You can have it your way. All of these messages come to us.
Are you mad at Burger King?
I mean, it's the best slogan to illustrate my point.
It's a good point because it represents a lot of. It's also Subway's point.
Yeah, it's everyone's point because it works.
Which you fill out the puzzle on the bag.
It works incredibly well. Yeah. So here we have something.
But that's a big if. Right? That's always been my problem with that is you could do anything you want if, and we were saying on my podcast last week that we were talking about my parents creating a higher starting point for my brother and I than they had, right? You improve on what you start out with, and that's really all you can do. Some people improve farther and faster than others, but that's asking a lot. You have to be kind of the exception to the rule. And what you're talking about is people are not starting with the same thing, and that's why we have so much of this disagreement about how to solve some of these issues.
Well, here comes an idea though. It's what I'm calling a great global pause. This is the great global pause, right? We have to step off and say, I'm sorry, just for right now, you can't have it your way. We are asking that you put your individual rights, freedoms, and responsibilities on hold. Wear a mask and stay home.
Please.
This is what we want you to do.
Please.
We have no clear national policy on this. We can't even seem to get a county policy.
And as far as you and I go, the people that are trying to participate in that, you would love to be in my basement right now having this conversation, but we're trying to behave and be safe.
Yeah, there's no way I would come there.
And so here's the thing too, though, is I think people forget when someone says, stay home, wear a mask, be safe, wash your hands, they are also planning to do those things. Like no one is, and this is why people get mad when politicians try to do things against those kind of rules or whatever. But we all are trying to say, let's all do this so that we can all stay safe, right? Like
you cannot have it your way right now.
Yeah,
get the fuck over it.
Yeah, you can't go
babies.
You can't go to Chuck E. Cheese right now and share a soda with 9 people. You can't do it. It's just not. You're all gonna die. I'm trying to protect you.
And this is where it does bleed into politics because it does have to do with the collective good, right? It is not every person for themselves. It is not the will of free choice. It is not independence. It is this idea that we are in this together and that we need to have a collective agreement to do something that is selfless and for the community good. And America sucks at that.
Yeah.
And
why?
That's why the virus is so fucking successful.
Why do you think we suck at that?
You fucking froze. Because of all the points I just made. The reason our country was invented was everything against what we're trying to go for right now.
That's a great point.
It's counterintuitive. And we're talking, 10 generations in,
mm-hmm.
At least, definitely since World War II, at least 100 years.
That's
since
what we were talking
pandemic.
about. This is so great. This is such a
really
great
works.
Yeah.
This makes a lot of money. This makes people believe in the future. If they just think that they can get something better, if they work just for themselves, every man for themselves, it just works that way. Forget the women and children. We don't have to pay them.
And forget the people who get left in our wake, who don't have the resources to complete the education or the training, or in so many cases, they don't have the either physical or mental capacity. And we are really struggling with that mental capacity right now. And not that we're not doing enough for people that are inhibited cognitively, is what I'm saying, although that is so important, but also mental health. I mean,
huge,
especially the homeless problem right now. Completely stone sober people are not homeless for very long. Right. And, homelessness can be kind of, you kind of get into a rhythm and a using pattern of whatever your thing is. In LA right now, it's all, meth and cheap, filthy heroin. And yeah. And we just really do a bad job of that part. So we address a lot of these issues on the show, actually. And last week we were talking about specifically, like, since World War II, it's like a lot of those people, their kids are the ones that are in charge really right now. And some of those people are even still alive, but they're also getting so much older. And so we're just seeing like, it's kind of like a blimp kind of running out of juice as it's going, and then it's pulsating. I don't know why it's pulsating in my motion here, but and so that's the thing is that, so yeah, it really worked great for the people that sprinted towards the top and they got off at their little tiers down the hierarchy, but there's too many people that don't have a literally a place to eat or go to the bathroom. And
I think a meritocracy is that we live in is a little bit of a sham. And also when you get to the examples like Bezos and Buffett and these runners of Google, I call me a socialist, but I just don't think you need more than $100,000 a month. Like, you are setting your family up and your children up for future success, but how much wealth do you really need in your world right now?
Well, and even if the cap was higher, even if the cap was, I mean, there's so much. It's got to the idea that you and me have talked about this with a colleague before. When you have all this capital working in a system, if that's all getting kind of stuck in one place and it's not coming back out, think of it a game of hungry hippos. If somebody, you can't get very far in the game if one of the hippos doesn't spit the balls back out at some point.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like if I played skee ball and the balls never came back down the thing, it's like that's not going to be a very long game. Well, it hasn't been a very long game because if you really look at it blossoming after the Industrial Revolution, we had two really great world wars, which really allowed us to subsidize our, the blossoming of our economy and our middle class suburban lifestyle and whatnot. But those numbers of people, even in the upper half of that, are shrinking, and the money's kind of all staying there, and now we got 7.5 billion hippos on the planet, and not enough of the. You know what I'm saying? Like, is that where we're going?
The thing is I had a very intense but brief bout with insomnia when I was in third grade, because I had the severe realization that our overconsumption in the United States directly related to the rest of the world's suffering. My children will consume 800 times more resources than almost any other child on the planet. What right or the audacity of our culture to believe that we have
that we're entitled to that.
Why?
Well, and so much of it is so wasted. And this is what drives me crazy is that as taxpayers, for example, because people like to identify themselves as such, that we could demand a little better of a job from the people that we're paying taxes to improve things like that. Food waste, homelessness, and food insecurity amongst children in this country is at zero, so it's too high. And the way that that's set up is like we're also like throwing so much stuff away. And there's people who are very affluent in other countries who brush their teeth out of a bowl of water so they don't run water the whole time.
Totally.
We would totally be grossed out by that. But like,
2-minute showers.
Yeah. I haven't showered in days because I care about the world. And I have wet wipes. And I don't flush them. I bury them in the yard.
No, I think that I'm throwing up, and we're both throwing up all of these, issues, and there are a lot of issues in this world. Do I have a lot of solutions? I'm not sure. However, I'm never going to stop speaking truth to power, and I will not quit, demanding that women have equal pay for equal work, which is such a fucking loaded term because 80% of the work I do doesn't get paid.
Because it's not, it's not taxable.
Majority of my life I've spent most of my life doing unpaid labor.
And then the stuff you get paid for, we historically don't get paid enough for.
Oh, it's pathetic.
And then in any other industry, you would make less money than I would doing the same job.
I made twice as much at age 27.
Yeah, like you worked at a phone bank selling knives or something?
I've done, no knives. I sold steaks for a while.
Oh, God, that sounds
as
good.
a vegetarian. But I worked in the phone.
Listen, I don't eat this garbage, but you're going to love it. It's frozen. It's vacuum packed. I'll give you some herb butter.
Dry ice and everything. And can I add on 4 4-ounce boneless pork chops for you? $9.99.
For 4 pork chops?
4 4-ounce boneless pork chops. It was an add-on. I was the queen of add-ons.
Can you still do that? I'm never not adding 4 pork chops for $9.
Dude, well, this was a little bit ago.
Oh, that's true. I'm going to say, don't let me see a $2 pork chop in this economy.
I could sell a T-bone, a ribeye.
They had ribeyes then?
Oh, yeah. Omaha Steaks. I mean, they ship to both coasts on dry ice all the time.
Yeah, their Christmas deal is crazy. I haven't seen the one for this year. I bet it came out today. Not a sponsor.
the packages we sold. But before that, I did market research for Gallup and We See Research. That was way more interesting because I would call people and ask them about their political opinions all over the country. I would call and interrupt your dinner and ask you about like Bill Clinton. And it was so fun.
That's a
because
big
I would
conversation right now because that industry seems to be so obsolete now with the two major elections in a row that they kind of got wrong. But
what's up with the polling? People
That's what
just
I'm
flat out lying.
So I know that's been a while since you did this professionally, but can you tell me what is the average responder to
Oh my gosh, can I tell you my favorite response ever?
Please.
Because you called all over the country at random. And this is when people still had landlines, right? This is in the mid 90s, late 90s. And we would ask people demographic questions at the end. And I was calling Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And I said, sir, just for classification purposes, do you consider yourself a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent? And he said, well, I don't know. I never was too good at geology. Mm-hmm. Yep. And then CNN would, thank you for that dance. CNN would ask really loaded questions like, do you think Al Gore's environmental policies are too extreme? Yes or no? That's not a non-biased question, if you ask
It's not, especially because those people that you're calling don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
So yeah, I would say overall, I mean, I called Manhattan for 2 years because I could talk really fast, and I made so much money at those places. As a college student, like, I made good money. Like,
do you feel like that was the birth of your flow? Was on the phone saying, "Sir, thank you so much for that package of ribeyes. Would you like me to go ahead and add on a 4-pack of 4-ounce pork chops, $9.99, brother?"
No, darling. I was double state champion in humorous and dramatic interpretation in high school as well. No one has broken.
See, and you're still using. People say, "Why do we need that shit in schools?" Because you're still using that shit to sell steaks to the great people of Omaha.
The great people. No one in Omaha bought it though. It was California, New Jersey.
Is that just where the cows were? Was in Omaha?
Yeah, all that corn-fed beef, and the cows don't want to eat corned beef.
I don't think corn is food. I think it's fuel. I don't think it's food. It
makes them sick.
Yeah, it makes them. Yeah, if you feed them grass, they shed all that E. coli because something about the corn. We saw the same movie.
Well, you don't get the marbleization and the fatty tissue as much as if you feed them corn. Is like gets them fat fast. But the thing is, like, you could feed 98 people or something, or 2 people. Like the difference in that consumption and all of this, we could just feed a lot more people if we ate a little bit simpler. And I do believe nutritionally that America, that is one other part of COVID. Like culturally, we're suffering from a problem with just shifting to this group think. Like, let's just be collective for a second. Let's think about our community and all of this. But at the same time, I think nutritionally, unfortunately, we are a sick nation. We are not well, and we have a lot of underlying comorbidities, as Dr. Brick says. And I think that no one's really taking that to task like head on. Like 60% of our country has one of the underlying health conditions that COVID really prefers in a body to ravage it. And that's really sad. And I think a lot of the world is looking at us. We've been the envy of a lot of the world because of our entertainment industry for many, many decades. And we are the American dream is something to be sought after. And a lot of people know that we have a very good life here. But now it's kind of like, don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain because we're ill. We're not able to pivot. And unfortunately, we're not listening to directions. And if you don't listen to your teacher, which unfortunately our teacher is our principal at this point, and our principal is our president, he's not giving a consistent policy or message that says we really need to pull together. Everybody needs to be on the same page. We just need to mitigate and try and lower these numbers. And they're doubling and doubling and doubling, and we're losing more and more people. And
I try to anchor these conversations with this kind of caveat that what do you think average people, the people that you're hoping hear this, what do you want them to kind of move forward with to improve those issues in their lives, like in a general sense? Well, just what would you recommend? What do you? Okay, let me make it about you. I know that's a lot of pressure. What are you gonna do every day to try to improve that issue?
So I've stopped doing almost everything
Yeah.
recently. The only thing I do is skate 11 miles at Forest Park every day. And then I will go to Aldi or Trader Joe's every other week. My children are at public school. I teach remotely. But that's it. I don't see friends. I don't see family or anything because I know that if I catch it, I'm in trouble, first of all. And also, I really have enjoyed this time to retreat and reflect and really root down into what I want out of my life.
Yeah.
And I was overstimulated first. I will never go back to the way I was living before.
I don't even think that's an option.
No.
I'm certainly not. I mean, the idea of going to multiple places with people in them in a day sounds impossible. You know what I mean? Whereas I used to be all over town all the time. I used to be eating out 3 meals a day, and I'd go hang out at a club or a bar, even if I wasn't partying or something, I mean, there's always something to do. And now it's like, I don't even want to, it's just so radically different. So I don't think you're alone there. And I think that's such an important thing to validate is nobody wishes that all of this happened, but we've learned a lot about ourselves and what we want in the opportunity. We are going to carry out of this a lot of wisdom.
I hope so.
I'm making radical changes to my life to try to just improve it. Since we had this time to kind of be alone with our choices and
yeah, like I said, we're both very, very social people.
Yeah.
We're very connected with our communities. We thrive on groups. We thrive in environments that recharge us. Like the fact that we're sitting here and having this conversation and thinking positively about our experience is pretty incredible, because I honestly don't know if you would have described it to me a year ago, if I would be like, oh, hell no, I couldn't do that. I'm doing great. Like, this is okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually better than okay, because I don't feel like I'm just juggling my children and shifting them and placing them places just to get the job done.
Yeah.
Like, I'm their fucking mom 100% now. I don't know if I could have said that before this.
Because the pace of your life was so different. And yeah, totally. I totally agree.
It's great. I would like to perform again someday.
That'd be nice, right?
I will say that the hip hop community has continued on like nothing has changed, and that's a little bit difficult for me. I've turned down a lot of gigs and just had to say, this is just that's not me right now, and I'm just not going to take any part of it, nor am I going to attend a show, period. No. But I can support by watching online. I make a lot of comments. I stream a lot.
And that's where a lot, like the real grassroots level artists right now they're moving on to online platforms and trying to figure out a way to connect with their audience in a way that's safe for their audience. Mm-hmm. Like all my favorite drag queens are doing Twitch shows. Like Twitch used to just be chubby kids playing Fortnite, and now it's it's everything. It's anything you want to do. And the podcast is we do it on YouTube, and eventually we'll be streaming once I think I need to buy a new computer, honestly, but we'll be streaming to Twitch and YouTube and Facebook simultaneously. So it's a great time to be an artist at your own level, because you're not competing with stuff that people are going to be at Enterprise or Chaffetz or Riverport doing. You know what I mean?
It's incredible DIY moment in history. I feel very lucky to be alive in such a chaotic time, and I hope that you and yours and me and mine make it through to the other side, because and also as an impulsive, very type A experience addict as I am, it's almost exhilarating to wake up every day and be like, well, I could die tomorrow. Let's just and it's really true.
And it's liberated me from my FOMO.
Yes.
Because I'm not missing out on anything.
No.
Because there's nothing to miss out on.
Damn thing.
No, there's nothing good out there to go do unless you're talking about, sitting on a patio in November. You know what I mean?
Seriously. There's no options. And when
yeah.
you are brought with no options, you really are looking in the mirror and taking a deep, just a deep look at what's important. And I've come up with some great stuff. I've slowed down on actually delivering songs because when George Floyd died, someone told me to shut the fuck up. White feminism is death and you are a bitch. And I was like, huh. And I kind of believed them for a minute. And I don't anymore, but I did need to stop for a second. And I read a bunch of books and I listened to all these audiobooks and got in touch with my white privilege and got in touch with white supremacy and tried to just figure out, I had suburban angst from age 6 on. I'm not saying that I was woke in kindergarten, but I was woke by 2nd grade. That doesn't mean that I still don't have extreme implicit bias and did not need to say a lot of shit this summer. There was no room for it. And so now I'm taking stock and figuring out how to navigate that. There will never be a post-racial world, but where white feminism and mom rap fits into all of it. I don't even know if there is a place for mom rap.
I don't know
in the
that
world.
You don't identify as a white feminist. You happen to be Caucasian and a feminist.
And I'm a globalist.
Yeah.
I'm a globalist. I'm an internationalist.
Sure. Right.
Yeah.
And so, but that's the thing, is that it felt like, oh, this is a suburban white lady acting like she's woke, but she doesn't understand the real, because you weren't a part of the racial group that you were trying to speak to or for or whatever at the time. Not that you were trying, again, yes, absolutely.
My message has always been very global and very international focused. And so if we took it out of the Black community of St. Louis, it just wasn't the right time. So now the time is coming again where the platform could probably be reintroduced. And I've gotten some really cool ideas. And who wants to preach? You just have to talk about your own life and your own experience. And it just takes one hit. So I'm working on that, just working on that.
Yeah. I'm excited to be a part of that process. So I do want to recap a couple things, because I don't want to forget to leave anything out. Of course, I do want to shout out again our friend Mr. Tracy and who we lost recently and love dearly, and he gave so much to the music community, both locally and beyond. And I want to talk about where people can find what music you do have available currently and where they may see forwarding in the future. I know we're Zaza Goodbrake on YouTube and Instagram.
Yeah. Instagram. Well, see, my pictures are the most exciting part of my life lately, because I realized that I wanted to use everything I have to speak towards my messages. And it turns out that if you work out as much as I do and discover your sexuality at age 40, I have this really beautiful body that I like to share with people. And I almost got fired over it recently because I believe that a woman's body is her own to share. And I do believe that women's breasts are instruments of peace and that they should not be pornographic. And so I am really, really revealing on my Instagram pictures, and they're very arousing. And I don't mean to turn everyone on with them. I'm just making the art that I want to reflect and what I'm feeling in the moment and the way I want to get my messages across. And so my Instagram is Zaza Goodbrake. And I had to make it private because it was a little bit scandalous. It's not pornographic, and I don't have an OnlyFans page, but I could make porn. I'm not going to.
Well, you're inviting followers, but it's just not there for anyone's mom to go find.
Moms do go find it. That's the whole point.
I meant their moms, like grandmas, to go find.
Grandmas too, just no students that are 18 or younger.
And I think that's fair. We do that with this podcast too. It doesn't necessarily ever cover super sexually explicit material, but we do like to just keep the kids out the room as an option.
And I do think that the reason that I make these pictures and the content that I do and the music that I do, because it is controversial and it is offensive. Like, my family cannot stand the music that I make, and they haven't talked to me in 2 years now because of it, because they don't like the content of my message. But really, I want women to go out and have the boudoir shots. I want women to feel elevated and sexy even after they have children. And I'm body positive no matter what you identify as, what you want to wear. I dressed as a fucking man for like most of my life and had a butch ass haircut and dated a woman. I've been there. You name it, I've done it. Give me a break. I love living life and I want to share it with people. And so you should follow me on my Instagram, and it'll become more exciting over the years, I think. It's a real journey.
I love that. I love being a part of this journey. I love that you came on Jacob V Weekly to share this with people, because I think I get a lot of questions about my friend with the green jumpsuit and things of. I
missed your wedding. Can we do it again?
I know. While it was happening, I'm like, can we just do this every Saturday? We got free hedgerows. The food was actually edible. It was great. An absolute hit. That was a brothel back in the day, that building.
The old Rock House?
Yeah, for years.
My God.
So.
Your wedding was the best produced wedding I've ever been to.
It was a major life goal of mine. It was something I'd been crafting for a long time. I didn't have the spouse figured out yet until I was with my wife, but I had a lot of those other details kind of in my pocket, kind of thinking of crafting.
Oh my God, did it show? I felt like from beginning to end I was in a movie.
That's great. That's so great. I love you so much. I'm so glad we got to do this. I want you to come back when you have new material you want to promote. You have to come premiere it here. You heard it here first.
Deal.
This is the spot.
The sign. This is the old piece, right?
Yeah.
This is how people do peace. This is the sign of the divine feminine, and she's coming back. And these are the men's legs sitting down. That's what all men need to sit the fuck down
and listen.
And these are the legs of the goddess coming out of the earth.
I love that.
The rebirth is coming. We must believe in.
Zaza,
and I love it.
I love you. I'll see you soon.
I see you soon. Bye, darling. Thank you.